The headlines and newscasts have been dominated lately by the bloody Hamas invasion of Israel and Israel's bloody response. I want to talk to you about another bloody war we need to keep on our radar. That's Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. Some say it's a fight between democracy and totalitarian dictatorship. Ukraine needs weapons. I want to talk to you about some potent U.S. weapons the U.S. wants to send to the scrap heap. These allegedly obsolete weapons could help Ukraine a lot. We need to send Ukraine the U.S. Air Force A-10 Thunderbolt. The A-10 is also known as the Warthog or simply the Hog. Here's what some troops under fire have to say about the Warthog.
A-10 saving the day again, baby.
Let's listen to that again.
A-10 saving the day again, baby.
The A-10 is far and away the favorite Air Force aircraft of our boots on the ground, from Special Forces commandos to the rank-and-file infantry. The A-10's main mission is what is known as close air support. The Warthog flies low and slow compared to other Air Force jets. Its deadly Gatling gun cannon makes a Bronx cheer kind of noise as it swoops in to blast the enemy. The A-10 strafes enemy troops with its machine gun cannon. Cheers erupt from U.S. troops on the ground below in one war zone after another.
Close air support is about the guy on the ground.
The A-10 was built for ground combat.
Those comments are from a mini-documentary produced by the Missouri-based 303rd A-10 Fighter Squadron on duty in 2014 in Afghanistan. They hoped their documentary would convince the Pentagon to save the A-10. Instead, the Air Force brass was furious. Air Force generals tried to kill the documentary, but copies leaked out. Soon it was seen millions of times on the internet. Members of Congress saw it too, and the Air Force left the A-10s in service for a while. The A-10 is quite simply a rapid-fire Gatling gun cannon with an airplane built around it. The GAU-8 Avenger's 7 rapidly rotating barrels can fire 30-millimeter projectiles at a ferocious 3,900 rounds per minute. The plane's ammo drum is almost the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. The cannon is so powerful, it briefly slows the plane's airspeed when it fires. The A-10 was designed and built during the Cold War. One of its missions was to kill Soviet tanks if Russia invaded Europe. The A-10 was up for the challenge. The A-10 Warthog is ugly and slow when compared to newer, sleeker, faster combat aircraft like the obscenely overpriced and problem-plagued F-35. The A-10 was built to take ground fire, and a lot of it. The cockpit is surrounded by a projectile-resistant titanium tub. One A-10 pilot who was saved by the plane's armor was Captain Kim K.C. Campbell. KC is her call sign. It stands for Killer Chick. Campbell flew over 100 combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan. For her combat flying skills, she was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the highest medal in the Air Force. She retired as an Air Force colonel. During the Iraq War, Campbell and her lead A-10 pilot got a call that U.S. troops were taking enemy fire at a bridge on the north side of Baghdad.
It was the troops in contact. They were taking fire. We had the coordinates. We understood the situation, and our plan was to go in there, do a couple strafing runs or rockets, and get out. We did a couple passes. We did gun and rockets, and then my last pass, just the loudest explosion at the back of the airplane. I mean, I knew I had been hit. There was no doubt in my mind. It was just the whole jet shook. I remember seeing kind of this bright orange fireball surround the airplane.
The plane's hydraulic controls had been shot up. She struggled to get her A-10 under control using an old-fashioned manual control system. Campbell knew she couldn't eject over Baghdad, where battles were raging everywhere. Her only option was to limp back to Kuwait, a harrowing 1-hour flight of about 300 miles. But she made it, and she landed safely.
I was just happy to be on the ground. Right? Any landing that you can walk away from is a good one.
The A-10 was a lifesaver many times over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yet the Air Force hates the A-10, and it has been moving heaven and earth to ground these heroic planes. The Air Force hates the A-10 because they apparently hate close air support. It seems the Air Force doesn't care about the grunts on the ground. The generals get orgasmic over supersonic jets engaged in acrobatic air-to-air combat. Air Force generals and fighter pilots cling to the delusion that cockpit hotshots will engage in aerial combat in wars of the future. The Air Force's own research lab has developed the XQ-58A Valkyrie, an unmanned combat drone powered by artificial intelligence. The Valkyrie cruises at 548 miles per hour. It has a range of 3,500 miles. Test flights have already demonstrated the drone in the role of a wingman to piloted fighters. Before long, those piloted fighters will be obsolete. When Russia invaded Ukraine, one of the first U.S. weapons the Ukrainians asked for was the A-10, 100 of them. The Warthog was designed in the Cold War as a tank killer. It was meant to go up against Soviet tanks in close air support. That's exactly what Ukraine wanted to do with them. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin refused Ukraine's request, saying the 1970s-era A-10 is obsolete. Obsolescence hasn't stopped the Air Force from keeping the B-52 bomber in service. The B-52 has been flying since 1955. It is 22 years older than the A-10. Everything from engines to sheet metal rivets have been replaced countless times on the B-52. It's been upgraded with the latest electronic defensive systems. But the B-52 is a nuclear bomber, not a lowly jet fighting down and dirty with our ground troops and saving the lives of many GIs. Congress knows that countless veterans who vote have high praise for the A-10. To get Congress to fund costly new war toys, the Pentagon had to keep the A-10 in service for years. The late Senator John McCain was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War. He was on a mission near Hanoi when he was shot down. He became a prisoner of war in Vietnam. Senator McCain was a fierce supporter of the A-10. He was well aware of what the A-10 did in battle. During a Senate Armed Services hearing in April 2014, McCain grilled Secretary of the Air Force Deborah Lee James about the relentless plan to retire the A-10. Senator McCain asked her which plane the Air Force planned as the replacement for the A-10 for close air support. She stunned McCain when she mentioned the B-1 bomber.
F-15E, F-16, B-1 bombers, some of our unmanned
The B-1
vehicles.
bomber will now be used for close air support?
So it is my belief that the B-1 bomber has done some close air support in Afghanistan. So we would cover it with existing aircraft, and of course, down the line.
That's a remarkable statement. That doesn't comport with any experience I've ever had, nor anyone I know has ever had. See, this is an example. You're throwing in the B-1 bomber as a close air support weapon to replace the A-10. This is the reason why there is such incredible skepticism here in the Congress.
The A-10 was built specifically for close air support. The B-1 is a bomber, designed and built to be a bomber. It was meant to replace the aging B-52, but new technology and cost overruns made the B-1 an albatross, not a warthog. The Air Force fact sheet about the B-1 bomber does not mention close air support. Not once.
I can't speak for the committee. I can only speak for myself and several others. You will not pursue the elimination of the finest close air support weapons system in the world with answers like that. So I hope you will come up with something that is credible to those of us who have been engaged in this business for a long, long time.
I have a theory about why the Pentagon refuses to send the A-10 to Ukraine. Maybe it's because Ukraine might be able to make good use, perhaps excellent use, of the A-10. And that might be the rub. If the Ukrainians use the A-10 to deadly effect against Russia, that might make the U.S. Air Force brass look bad for getting rid of a proven fighter aircraft that's already been paid for. And we can't have the big spending Pentagon brass look bad, now can we? I'm Vince Wade.